Happy birthday, Nami. So for today's video, I just want to talk about some things that I think will happen for Nami in the future. One of the big things that I've talked about a lot on this channel is that I do think it will be revealed that Nami is an 8th fishman, like how Chimney is an 8th mermaid. Because I think where the narrative is going is to show that ultimately Nami is a foil to Koala and they will complement each other when they're both Straw Hats. I think it's also to show that racism and or slavery can happen to any group, because it would be very, I think, compelling to show that Koala was a slave to humans, but was shown compassion by fishmen, whereas Nami was a slave to fishmen while being shown compassion by humans. And this turns on its head a little bit, because Nami essentially would have been a fishman enslaved by fishmen, seeing as how we're going with the idea that Nami is an 8th fishman. This parallels with Koala being a human enslaved by humans, only to be shown compassion by fishmen. So I think that's where Nami's story is going. We're going to see that there's more to her heritage than we know already. And I think a bit of this has been foreshadowed in Punk Hazard, when Law was swapping the souls of the Straw Hats around, and Nami spent a bit of time in Sanji's body. And we talked about this in another video, but Nami remarked on how durable Sanji's body was. And Sanji remarked on how strong Nami's body was when he performed Blue Walk in her body, thus showing that naturally Nami does have super strength, which would explain all the gags that have been going on in the series of how she's able to hurt other Straw Hats, and how she's just naturally capable and has naturally fast reflexes, which is how she redirected the lightning shot by Enel back in Skypiea. But on the subject of hurting other Straw Hats, I could believe she and Sanji both have the power of love, which is why they both are able to hurt Luffy like Garp is able to hurt Luffy, and said power of love can be combined with Haki. That's why when I said that I think she could have a version of Conquerors, I meant it, because I think Happiness Punch could just be Conquerors in a very weird way, because it has a very similar effect to Conquerors, but instead of causing a crowd to faint and foam at the mouth, she gives everyone a nosebleed, or gives everyone heart eyes and admiration of her body. So hey, we could have different variations of Conquerors. Conquerors doesn't have to be one thing, but we'll have to wait and see. But yeah, I think she does share that in common with Sanji. And I think that line of logic is going to move us on into the future. But to continue. So I could believe that we get a scientific breakdown of Nami's heritage at some point in the series. This would also explain possibly how she's able to predict the weather, because a lot of future sight and observation Haki adjacent abilities have been very popular with the sea dwelling folk of One Piece, though it's mostly been mermaids so far. But I could see a fishman, or in this case an 8th fishman, having those type of abilities, because we see from Madame Shirley, she's able to predict the future, and Queen Otahime had pretty adept observation Haki from the jump. So it's very possible that Nami's weather prediction abilities could be due to her fisherman heritage. Now, why do I think a lot of people said that she was supposedly the daughter of a holy knight, specifically Shepard Sommers? I think that's just because they both have orange hair, and people are trying to have another aha moment, like how we found out that Frankie is the son of Queen from the former Beast Pirates. But unlike with Queen and Frankie, like I said in another video, there's no correlation between Shepard Sommers and Nami. And I think if we were to ever get a very personal insight about the Holy Knights and how time with Emu is on a general level, I think we would get that from Gunko. I think that's Gunko's role in the narrative, quite honestly, because she is the only celestial dragon or celestial dragon adjacent character to ever have any redeeming qualities whatsoever. Everybody else is painted as pure evil. The only other exception might be Shanks, but Shanks might just be this story's version of Superman, in which he is a ruling class individual raised by down-home folk in the Roger Pirates, whereas Shamrock was raised by Garling. So I could see that for Shanks, but that's not the case for Nami. I think Nami's story is going to be that she is a fishman, essentially enslaved by fishman, and the overall message is that everyone has the capacity for evil, and no matter how evil you are or what circumstances you might be in, imposing your will onto others is wrong. That's what I think the entire story between her and possibly Koala is going to be, and they will come together to change the world with the greater Straw Hat group. However, when it comes down to powers, I do think that Zeus might be the end all be all for the set. There's still a possibility that she gets Pandora or Prometheus as a gift, seeing as how we don't know what happened to Pandora and we don't know where Prometheus is. Or Usopp can get Prometheus, but I still think Usopp most likely will be a part-time wielder of Ragnar. I still think that's the case. But for Nami, either she'll get Prometheus, or seeing as how Zeus has fundamentally changed as a homie, seeing as how he's not a cloud anymore, exactly, he's the climate-tact, perhaps he has the ability to become Prometheus. That would be weird, but not actually impossible, because the climate-tact has always had the ability to generate heat. So maybe Zeus just takes that to the extreme and becomes Prometheus. Don't know. Another possibility is that if she does get Prometheus, Prometheus resides within the log post on her arm, and then the log post becomes a weapon itself. That would be interesting, seeing as how she is the navigator and that is the main navigational tool for navigating around the Grand Line. I could see that as a possibility, but I do think homies are the future for Nami. And to put some more icing on the cake, another odd possibility, and this is stacking the deck pretty high because we haven't had this yet, but I think it's possible because of how weird homies are. I think, seeing as how Zeus is a devil fruit construct, and in being a devil fruit construct, he is his own being apart from Big Mom and apart from the Soul Fruit. He exists just as a weird anomaly as all homies do. I think he could eat a devil fruit and he'd be okay. He'd just be like a weird devil fruit user that is strangely ethereal, but also independent and can use these powers under his own volition like all the other powers that he has. I could possibly see that going in that way because he has been characterized by eating. So if he were to eat a devil fruit, I wouldn't be too surprised. But to wrap things up, I do think Zeus and or homies in general are going to be the play for moveset moving forward for Nami. But as far as stories go, I do think Sanji being in Nami's body and Nami being in Sanji's body are narrative parallels, and seeing as how we found out more about Sanji and how he's a weird mutant and he's one of the first in the series to be a weird modified human, I think it's going to double back onto Nami to show that she is 1/8 fishman. And it will also be a parallel to Chimney because Chimney was our first 1/8 mermaid. So yeah, I think overall that's going to be her story. It's going to be a race themed story, but a more meaningful one and more powerful one than what we've had with other characters that will not be named at this time. However, with that being said, if you're enjoying the video so far, click the like button. And if you want to see more from me, click the subscribe button followed by that bell so you never miss a video. In addition to, if you could, hit the hype button because it really does help. With that being said, give me your thoughts and tell your friends about Polypede Wax.